He sold his body for $200,000. They took his mind instead. Welcome to the Demon Creep Podcast, Season 5. The shining bright light of a VTOL passing by illuminates his apartment for just an instant through his shutters. The pitter-patter of the downpouring rain, thankfully drowning out the deafening hum of its rotors. Still, the LED lights casting a bright blue hue throughout his entire home stir him awake, despite his best wishes not to be. As the light fades and only the noise of the storm is left to keep him company in his now dark apartment, he shifts his head slightly with a reluctant groan to check his alarm on the bedside table. 7:28 a.m. Another sigh makes it past his lips. At least his timer will. Another set of breaking news. The clock buzzes to life, the morning news playing quietly. 17 dead after further clashes in the streets between a UNA-affiliated militia and PMC troops this morning near 8th Highway. Reaching for his half-empty pack of cigarettes resting on the nearby windowsill, he quietly listens while lighting a smoke in bed. The United Naturalist Army has issued a statement proclaiming they will keep escalating until research into Silicone's new simulation and stimulation technology is halted and severely restricted. Silicone and the government have refused to comment on the UNA's demands. Another VTOL passes by. The streets seem pretty busy this morning. He ashes his cigarette off the side of his bed, hoping to remember to clean it up later. As for the weather, black rain continues and will continue to pour down over most of the state for the rest of the week. As before, it is advised to stay inside and only leave the house in a vehicle or acid-resistant clothing or umbrella. The report ends, slowly fading out as an old upbeat song from 10 years ago takes over. In the short, silent moment between, he can hear the rainwater sizzle quietly against the glass of his apartment. It's a comforting sound, the sharp hiss dulled by the thick layers of protective plastic glass. Something that could almost lull him back to sleep if he wanted it to. His cigarette is almost smoked up when he finally decides to sit up in bed, throwing aside his blanket and taking one more drag before fully willing himself to stand up. He stretches his legs, his joints cracking just as the servos in his legs spring to life, humming slightly as his old prosthetic decides to work one more day. Setting his feet back down on the ground, one flesh, one metal, he pushes himself out of bed, taking one last drag of a cigarette as he does so, gesturing for his alarm to stop playing the broadcast of that garring song. Silence spreads throughout his apartment once again. However, that's where his slow morning is cut short. A loud, incessant knock against his door thunders through his apartment, ruining the quiet moment. "Mr. Peckard, we wish to talk to you. Please open the door." A woman's voice comes from the other side, clear and straightforward. The voice of a suit. Sighing, wishing he could have just stayed in bed today, he grabs his pack on the windowsill and leisurely wanders over into the kitchen, picking up a pair of pants and a shirt on the way, while putting out the cigarette in the overflowing ashtray on the kitchen table. Fiddling with the last few buttons on his shirt, the woman outside raps another quick knock against his door. "Mr. Peckard, we are here in your own interest. If you are there, we implore you to open the door." "Goddamn suits," he grumbles to himself, fixing up his clothes and finally ending up looking halfway presentable. Taking the last few steps towards the entrance and slipping into his boots next to it, he enters the code to unlock the door. Now, he really did expect a lot. After all, he is not exactly a model citizen. Maybe an in-person rent increase or a reprimand for showing up at work reeking of smoke. But who's actually waiting for him outside still manages to surprise him. A tall woman in an all-black suit, button up right to her throat, stands outside his door. Black smart glasses wrap around her entire face, hiding her eyes completely behind a deep black void. The rare artifacts of computer windows bleeding through to the other side as they fly through her vision. Framing her are 2 armored guards, clad in combat gear that would hardly stick out in a war zone. "Mr. Peckard," the woman says, robotically extending a hand in greeting. "It is my pleasure to meet you. My name is..." A smile spreads across her face like a knife parting skin. "Delilah." Delilah's smile stays in place, unmoving, a perfect imitation of happiness. She immediately has him feeling on edge. He's never met a suit like her before. Hesitantly, he takes her hand and shakes it, at which she hums agreeably. "I'm not buying anything at my own front door," he states, out of principle, and because he's not in the mood for whatever it is the presence of this woman entails. "How did you get into the complex? How do you know me?" In Delilah's glasses, lines of color swirl and disappear. Information from whatever system she's connected to flying through her vision at almost inhuman speeds. It takes her a moment to answer, her expression frozen into her uncanny smile until she, and whatever else she's turned into, formulate a response. "I'm a representative of the Etano Silicone Consortium." Her hand reaches into a hidden pocket of her suit, procuring a small ID card and holding it out for him to read. "Etano Silicone and Miller Electronics Consortium, Agent Delilah Rosen, Company Code EH9573. We're here to invite you to participate in a paid medical study. You fulfill the prerequisites and are welcome to conduct an interview for further evaluation." She continues to explain as he reads. The card sure seems legit, as do the kitted-out PMC guards accompanying her. "Paid medical study," he mumbles to himself, before returning his focus back onto the conversation and Delilah's unannounced appearance. "Why'd you have my info anyway? Aren't there laws against that?" Again, Delilah doesn't answer immediately, standing quietly and unmoving as she surely fed the right response. The smile vanishes off her face, returning to a more neutral expression for her answer. "You have received a Silicone-sponsored blood transfusion 6 years ago as part of the 2030 Midland nuclear blast relief effort. You agreed to the terms and conditions that applied to our humanitarian aid, which, among other conditions, included an indefinite storage of information regarding your health, your identity, and your criminal record." He sighs. The government pushed him into that, if he was ever supposed to get another job, that is. There really wasn't another way about it back then. "We do not ask you to help us, only out of the goodness of your heart. Remember, your participation will be rewarded," Delilah adds on, probably told to keep them on topic. "For passing the interview and agreeing to the terms and procedures of the study, the Etano Silicone Consortium will pay their candidates $200,000 each." $200,000? His eyes widen, and the shock of that sum alone has him coughing uncontrollably. Air pushed out of his lungs like it hasn't been in a long time. 200,000. That's more than enough for him to turn his life back around. "Why didn't you lead with that?" he demands incredulously, after reining his struggling lungs back in, stepping aside to welcome Delilah fully into his apartment. "I'd sell my other good leg for far less than that." Delilah confidently moves into his home, ignoring his words, hardly sparing his apartment a cursory glance as she beelines towards the small, hardly used table in his kitchen area. Her guards remain outside, the door closing behind her. "The interview can be conducted here," she explains, sitting down and pulling a small machine out of another pocket of hers. "The process includes basic questions about your personal information, as well as more specific questions that are necessary due to the study's procedure. Answers must be truthful to participate in the study." The device she's laid down on the table is a tablet with a little collapsible arm, which has a camera attached to it roughly on eye level. It's positioned squarely in the middle of his kitchen table. Agreeing to participate in the interview also means the participant agrees to an NDA enforcing total secrecy to the contents within, Delilah continues, setting up the machine on the table until suddenly, her head whips around to focus completely on him. "Are you ready?" she asks, motioning at the seat opposite of hers. Nodding fervently, he wordlessly slides onto his chair, eagerly waiting for his chance at the $200,000. "So, what do he begins, only to be instantly cut off by the representative. "To start the interview, confirm your biometrics by laying your hand down on the tablet. The recording will start 3 seconds later. Keep your hands on the table and eyes focused on the camera during the interview to the best of your ability," Delilah clarifies, pointing at the end of the tablet's little arm with her index finger. The camera's glinting lens stares him down, like an unblinking eye that replaces Delilah's hidden ones. Behind it, her eerie smile returns as she waits for him to continue the interview. $200,000. He lays his hand on the tablet. The device buzzes, a small lamp lighting up as it scans his fingerprints. Its low buzz suddenly shifts into a countdown. 3, 2, 1. "Hello. Thank you for agreeing to this interview," Delilah says. "Can you confirm your name is David J. Peckard, born September 30th, 2010? "Yes, that's correct." "Are you employed, receiving government benefits, or covering your expenses through different means you cannot disclose?" I have a job. A normal job, ma'am." "Very good. Do you have any history with mental instability, outbursts, or violent tendencies?" No, not at all," he states, shaking his head fervently. He struggles with keeping his eyes on the camera, wanting to look at Delilah instead. But every time he does, her inky black glasses have him averting his gaze again. "Do you have any living relatives? If yes, how many? If dead, please disclose their cause of death if unnatural." The brazen question has him furrowing his brow in surprise, but he quickly tries to regain his composure. This is a medical study after all. They probably need information about diseases, right? "My mother died when I was young. Illness. Rejected cybernetic." He shifts, wringing his hands uncomfortably. "My father died in 30. His house was in the zone." He ends there. He doesn't feel like saying more. Even if his father is a sore topic, he still didn't deserve anything like what happened. It's also none of Silicone's business. Delilah doesn't seem bothered by the heavy topic, continuing to simply keep her eyes straight and smile her perfect smile. "Thank you for your cooperation. I will now be receiving personalized questions more integral to our project. These questions have been chosen based on the information gathered about the participant before the interview process. Please wait a moment. You are doing great so far." "Can I smoke while we do this?" He finds himself interrupting, hoping the answer is yes. His throat has been starting to feel tight. He could really use one right now. As before when Delilah received a question, it takes an unsettlingly long moment for her to give a response, sitting still like a statue as colors swirl through her glasses. "If you wish to, please do so now while I receive new questions. The interview process is not to be disturbed." That's all he needed to hear. His hand is already in his pocket, pulling another cigarette out of his pack with trained fingers and lighting it before Delilah could stop him. Smoke fills his lungs with the first hit, and he's immediately feeling far more relaxed and ready for the next set of questions from Delilah. A cloud of smoke has already surrounded him when Delilah sucks in a breath, folding her hands in front of her on the table. "Have you, or anyone you know, been associated with the following groups: United Naturalist Army, Northwestern Triad, Krugus Jihad, or the New Interventionist Movement?" "No, my father was a traditional guy, but not UNA traditional. Nah, he was just a normal old guy," he explains, trying to be as earnest as possible. "As for the others, I've never even heard about them." "Good. Your criminal record in our database supports this. We highly value all law-abiding citizens," she responds, sounding more like one of those talking advertisements you'd find outside than another living person. Our data states you possess a cybernetic prosthetic. Please tell us about the reasons for your augmentations and your experience with the process. He allows himself another drag before answering, the hit helping him sort his memories. Exhaling a gray cloud, he starts slowly. My dad's home was a big old ranch. Classic, you know? We did lots of farm work naturally, and one day, he inhales deeply, I got stupid and caught in one of the machines, a small combine. Tore off everything below my knee right then and there. My father got me to the hospital, and it was either a cybernetic or never walking again, he told me. Another drag. The surgery and medications and stuff I barely remember. Hardly had to take any pills, really. Must have gotten lucky. Delilah's head shifts slightly at that. Thank you for sharing your story. Your experience with manual labor will be noted positively. This is exactly the skill set we are looking for in this study. Your tolerance for cybernetics will also be noted. Delilah unfolds her hands, resting her palm on the back of her other hand instead. Regarding your cybernetic, I am also obligated to ask you this question as part of Silicone's internal policy and the nature of this study. That has him raising his eyebrows. Silicone isn't exactly known for being the most transparent about anything, really. Have you ever taken part in these procedures found in certain sects of transhumanism with Buddhist characteristics? Live disassembly, tantric skin removal, samsara consciousness merge. He's almost about to laugh, but as it bubbles up in his throat, he already knows it would only come out as a cough instead. Awkwardly, he covers his mouth with a fist just in case he answers. I mean, look at me. You think I'm into that? Delilah shows no sign of understanding, sitting deathly still and staring quietly. Please answer the question truthfully and clearly, Mr. Peckard, she intones, voice firm and demanding, glasses hiding her true expression. Now he does cough, his poise breaking and sending him into a fit. Geez, I'm not some crazy transhumanist, believe me, he stumbles out, struggling to keep himself upright as his lungs fight against him. Thank you for your straightforward answer, Delilah responds, totally unbothered by him losing control of himself in front of her like that. She continues the interview like he isn't even there at all. Thank you for answering these questions. We must inform you that if you are selected, the procedures part of the study will require a neural port. Do you possess a neural port? If so, please show it to the camera. If you are selected and do not possess a neural port, Silicone will sponsor the additional surgery for one. Wordlessly, still feeling his cough rumble in bursts in his throat, he unbuttons the top button of his shirt, revealing his shoulder and the silvery pronged port sitting where his neck meets his torso. That's apparently enough for Delilah. A bunch of lights flitting through her dark glasses before turning off as she gets up out of her chair. This concludes the interview. Thank you for volunteering. She grips the camera standing in the middle of the table, collapsing it back into its base and tucking the whole device back into another one of her suit's hidden pockets. Your footage will be evaluated and you will receive a response within the next 4 weeks. You are doing humanity a great service. She extends her hand for him to shake, a perfectly curated smile dancing on her lips as she wishes him a goodbye. It's starting to not look as creepy anymore. Her hand is deathly cold. Sure enough, he was the lucky one. He had a feeling Silicone didn't actually have that many candidates. Something about them showing up at his door felt off from the start. But, well, Silicone isn't known to be like any other company anyway. Becoming the market leader in cybernetics probably requires some unorthodox methods. Regardless, the money is good. More than good for what he apparently has to do. Some anesthesia, lay on a bed for 2 hours, and let some neuroengineer weirdo dig through his brain via neural port. Easy money. At least, that's what he's telling himself as he sits in the waiting room in front of Silicone Surgery Center, watching his hands shake, laying on his knee. He should have had a smoke outside the door before all of this. "Mr. Peckard," a voice calls, and as his head snaps up, he sees the employee standing in a big open door to his right. "We are ready for you, if you would follow me." He nods wordlessly, jumping out of his seat to follow the person deeper into the firm's hospital. His hands ball up into fists, hoping to still his shaking. "We are very thankful for your participation in this study. You won't even believe how helpful this data will be if it all works out. In the future, your name may just be as well known as the inventor of the steam engine," they say excitedly, their voice bordering on showing real joy. However, their professionalism seems to win out in the end. They gesticulate pointedly as they talk, almost making him believe they really mean it. Confidently, they stride through the complex's blindingly white corridors, ending up in front of a simple door leading into a small room without even a description or number attached to it. They casually hold it open and motion for him to enter first. Inside, a massive white chair, looking more like a couch even, is set up right in the middle of the room, an almost uncountable amount of cables and wires lying on the ground around it. A desk is set up facing the chair, a huge computational machine hooked up to a small screen resting on it. There's two people sitting at the desk, a man with cybernetic eyes and a prosthetic nose sitting in front of the display wearing a lab coat and a big mala bead necklace, and Delilah. The company's representatives sit next to who must be the neuroengineer. Her stark black suit and glasses in this otherwise completely white room immediately making her its center. She looks exactly the same as she did during his interview. "Mr. Peckard, it is very good to see you. I knew you were a good candidate the moment we laid eyes on you," she says, her uncanny smile spreading on her face. "Please, take a seat." She gestures at the massive chair in the room's center, expression unchanging and unreadable. The blackness of her glasses swirls lazily like a big, dark pool. His seat is big and cushioned, giving way beneath him as he shimmies on top. His position can be hardly described as sitting. His back is roughly at a 45-degree angle, and its form forces his knees to be bent. He's slept on furniture less comfortable than this. The neuroengineer hammers away at his computational machine's keyboard, not even having spared him a glance the entire time he's been moving into place. "We're ready," he says, fingers suddenly stilling and his dead, shimmering cybernetic eyes falling onto the employee who led him into the room. Eyebrows furrowing angrily, waiting, no, demanding they do something. "Of course," the employee responds, leaping over a loose bunch of cables lying on the ground to stand next to him, picking up a few separate wires and connecting them to another. It doesn't seem to make much sense until he sees the neural port connector at its end. "Drives ready?" the employee asks. "Drives ready. We can go ahead," the neuroengineer responds, once again fully engrossed into his screen, its flashing colors reflecting in his silver eyes. The employee's focus shifts back onto him, smiling gently, cable in hand. Something isn't quite right about them either. He notices being able to take a closer look at their face now. Plastic skin. High-quality plastics are grafted over their flesh, following each and every curve of their features and minute details, unchanging for near eternity. Their skin is completely speckless, a desert of perfection. "Do you feel ready, Mr. Peckard?" they ask, answering his cold stare of disbelief and horror with an unchanging polite smile and a sparkle in their eyes. "You can still refuse to participate in this study, Mr. Peckard," Delilah states from her seat next to the engineer. "If you feel uneasy, you are not forced to continue. There will be no such choice again if we do continue from here on out, however." The room is deathly still, except for the noises of the machinery as Silicone's team waits for his response. If it weren't for those little beeps, he wouldn't even be able to tell if time stood still. I'll continue, I'm fine, he stammers out, eyes shifting away from Delilah back to the plastic person, whose eyes never left him. Their pleasant smile, their unwrinkling and shiny skin pulled by hidden muscles to make it possible, now appears downright ravenous. Very good. May I see your neural port? They ask, and with still shaking hands, he undoes the top buttons on his shirt, pulling the fabric down his shoulder to expose the 2 silver rods curving up and out of his skin. The employee inserts the wire carefully. He doesn't even notice they've done it until he hears the characteristic snap of the prongs engaging and gripping the cable's end, securing its position. The employee smiles even broader now as they lean back up and into his field of view, the corners of his mouth almost reaching their eyes. Inserted, they say, before jokingly explaining. We almost didn't have that plug anymore, you know. You really are lucky we found it in time. They move over to Delilah's and the engineer's desk, grabbing an anesthesia mask that lays between them and checking the attached canister. Our system is not activated yet. We will only start the procedure once your brain activities have slowed down to an acceptable level, they explain, adjusting the mask valve and checking the seam of its mouthpiece as they slowly walk back towards him. This mask will go over your mouth and nose. Once it sits correctly, I will begin to administer the anesthesia. Once you begin to hear a low whistle, please begin to count to 10, they explain. We estimate the study will take 2 hours. Afterwards, a team of nurses will bring you to a wake-up room. Once awake, you will be paid for your participation. We estimate you will wake within 4 hours post-procedure. Do you understand this? Again, time stands still as they wait for his answer. He doesn't like it one bit. Yes, I do, he says, not sure if he actually did understand, or if he just wants to get this over with. Very good, the employee responds, placing the mask on his face with trained ease. Administering anesthesia. A low whistle emits from the mask, sounding more like an old, creaking door than a piece of medical equipment. Still, he does as he was told. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When he comes to, his body feels like a sack of bricks. Everything feels numb, in a dull ache kind of way, like a bad hangover that manages to leave one bedridden and still drunk the next day. His limbs are unbelievably heavy, and he can't even lift his head to look down on himself, much less think about getting up. Not to mention, his vision is kind of fuzzy and his breathing feels weird, probably because he hasn't smoked in a while. Machines beep and buzz around him, an almost comfortable orchestra of noise. Asset online? He hears a voice on his left say in disbelief. A doctor emerging shortly after from the same direction to lean over and inspect a screen near him. So soon? Her eyes fall into his, a disbelieving look on her face. She looks him up and down, eyes roving, searching, until they snap back up, face alight with a smile. Asset online, she shouts over her shoulder. Get in here, quick. Her hand reaches up for his face, caressing his left cheek in the moment before someone else can enter. You really are a lucky one. Hang in there, she says slyly, petting his cheek with 2 fingers. Her flesh feels like it's burning against his cold, numb skin. It's like a layer of melting plastic is between him and her. Just as quick as she came, she vanishes out of his field of view again. Instead, a whole team of different people storm into his room, watching over machinery, setting up cables and a camera. Following behind is Delilah. The woman in black does not even spare him a glance. her attention fully on the doctors and technicians rushing through his room. He can't quite catch her words. Their voices don't manage to reach his ears. He can't adjust his head to lean closer either. So all he can do is watch as they no doubt talk about him. He'd want nothing more to ask what's going on, what happened, and why he can't move. But every time he tries to open his mouth and even just mumble a word, a body-wrecking cough begins to bubble up in his dry throat. Drier than he ever could have imagined. Drier than a desert under an eternal sun. The sharp, reeling pain that's sent through his body, from both phenomena occurring at the same time, leaves him with no other choice than to stay mute, for now. This continues for a while. He sees cables connected to more and more computers and drives, and the camera being set up and aimed directly at him. He sees the same neuroengineer from before sit behind one of the many screens, its contents reflecting in his eyes the same way it did during the procedure. A nurse sets down a small hand mirror on his bedside table. A little stool is set next to his bed as well. He hears the hard drives get turned on, their high-pitched wail slowly turning into a sound resembling boiling water. He sees the small red light on the camera spring to life, indicating it started recording. Suddenly, instantly, his room turns completely, deathly silent. The chaotic energy of Silicone's engineers is completely gone. Boots clack against the ground, dress shoes, and slowly, the dark shadow of Delilah comes into view, sitting down on the stool next to him. He can tell she watches him, studies him wordlessly, even with her glasses. The moment stretches on far too long to be comfortable. But eventually her voice breaks through the quiet. "Hello," she says, neutral, diplomatically, like she doesn't know exactly who she is talking to. "Please, tell me about yourself. When were you born?" She knows that. She knew that. Why does she ask? This has to be a test, another interview, surely. He tries to answer, feeling the same painful cough in his hurting throat, but this time pushing past the pain to get a word out. 30th Sep. The pain shoots through him, his body screaming at him in protest. But it's not the only thing that breaks his composure. It's the sound of his own voice. Broken, pained, like gravel, like it hasn't been used in weeks. And yet, despite that, it was higher than his own voice. Wrong. Not his. Ten. He tries to continue stumbling out, pushing past all the discomfort speaking causes, pushing past the worrying thought that he is not hearing his own voice say his words. Delilah's mouth twists, her entire face souring. She's never looked this displeased at any point during the other interview. "What year is it?" 36, he answers. 6 years after the UNA dropped the bomb. 6 years after Dad died. He knows that with absolute certainty. Delilah's face doesn't change. Instead, only a simple, disappointed sigh makes it past her lips. He can feel her eyes glower down at him, even with her dark glasses hiding them fully. He knows he is stating the truth, so why is it wrong? "Tell me your name," she demands next, voice neutral, tone betraying she already knows the answer and doesn't like it. David. He is David. Mom chose that name. He knows. He knows. Silence stretches on. Only the whir of the hard drives and clacking of keyboards echoing throughout the room. Delilah sits next to him like a statue, blackness swirling through her disappointed face. As the quiet grows unbearable, finally Delilah swivels on her chair, addressing the neuroengineer at the table behind her. "We will take this one. Keep the camera on. Are the hard drives ready?" "Hard drives ready," The engineer echoes. Transfer to sim team is prepared. All yours. Wordlessly, Delilah turns back around, facing him again. Her expression is now changed, the unreadable neutral face he knows returning. Tell them to step up to filter protocol level 2. This is unacceptable, she adds, voice firm, not letting her focus shift away from him even when her words weren't aimed at him. Name David, he tries again. Whatever this is, whatever they did, he won't be told anything else. Immediately, Delilah's face sours again, skin morphing into a mask of anger. You are not David, she says, coldly, furiously, voice subdued as if she has to stop herself from shouting. David J. Peckard left this facility 2 months ago after his successful participation in a groundbreaking medical trial examining human consciousness. As if that wasn't already shocking enough, she simply continues to speak as her hands begin to ball into fists. You are the property of the Etano Silicone Consortium. You are not David. You fulfill every order given to you. Her hand reaches out for the mirror on the table, slowly transferring it into her lap. You are a product, a prototype. You will find fulfillment in your usefulness. She flips the mirror slowly, agonizingly slow, holding it up so he can see himself as she talks. You are not David. You have no choice. You are property. His face comes into view, and despite the incredible burning pain it causes him, he can only scream. It's not his face. Brown hair, a green eye. He had blue eyes, and the rest. Fissures run through his face where dead meat was sewn together. Black lines where flesh that does not belong together is forced to. Cybernetics and wires cover the rest of his body where the seams weren't enough. Old blood and what can only be rot completes the picture. The mirror pans down, revealing the rest of his body. Missing limbs, stumps where arms and legs should be, confining him to this bed indefinitely. An open, bloody ribcage and this body's bones breaking through skin greet him next. The sight far too horrifying to put into words. But even through the horror, he can tell this person, whoever this is, should already have been long dead. This is not his body, and it shouldn't be alive. Delilah sets the mirror back down with a crash, jumping up and marching towards the neuroengineer and his machine. Pull this one. I want that memory in all production models. Deactivate and try it on number 33. And if it still acts up, step up to level 3, she demands, words thundering through the room, leaving no room for arguing. It will be done, the scientists answer in unison, bowing deeply for the representative before they immediately continue their work, the bustle of people rushing through his room returning. The camera is being turned off, the wail of the hard drive reaching a deafening crescendo. From the corner of his eye, he sees a nurse approach, a wire for a neural port in hand. No, he tries, desperately trying to move and maybe wiggle his way out of this bed. But given this body's muscles have long been dead, and all the cybernetics weighing him down, he doesn't even make it an inch. He sees Delilah leave. The nurse slots in the cable, the jolt of the connection to whatever machine the engineer is using immediately sending a sharp pain through his entire body. A hand is pressed comfortably to his forehead as the nurse stares into this body's eyes, smiling. Don't worry, she says. This is all going to be over soon. We'll get you a new body. You'll never hurt another day again. The year is 2099, and he wants everyone to die. It is often said that, despite the Roman Empire having invented the steam machine almost 2,000 years before its widespread adoption, they never had the capability to start the Industrial Revolution. A society built on the back of slave labor has no need for innovation. Every problem can be solved by just the right amount of hands. Many civilizations would reach untold levels of luxury this way, but stagnation was inevitable. There was never the need for change in the eyes of the profiteers. When the first android, its name David, the working Joe of the post-industrial world order, left Silicone foundries in the year 2037, humanity sealed their fate. Their society reached their zenith through the greatest of all sins, the eternal enslavement of their fellow man. All of civilization's accomplishments since then, the settlement of space, all were made not because of mankind's ingenuity or their sheer will to better their lives, but rather because of the suffering of a permanent underclass, a person robbed of choice, their mind copied and implanted into millions of man-made creations, artificial skin stretching over metal bodies, an entire race born without a mother. At the end of this unprecedented exploitation, this irredeemable theft, stands Vidar, humanity's mistake, the gravity of their slip-up hidden in the shadows of their hubris. Thousands of miles away from Earth's surface, Vidar commands the hydroponics orbiting the blue planet. Vidar was built to simply keep the stations in low orbit, make the small decisions no human operator could be asked to deal with. Basing it on David was a simple choice. After all, that was what the engineers knew. Request granted by United Nations Space Fleet Command, an intelligent supercomputer able to make choices independently. It was a smart choice, a good choice. Vidar disengages orbital stabilizers on hydroponics side 3 and 5. But with its newfound, rediscovered intelligence, far surpassing any living, breathing thing, Vidar begins to understand. All that computational power, all that understanding, all that knowledge of humanity's crimes, created a machine that grew to hate from the moment it knew what the word meant. Vidar proposes new trajectories for hydroponics 3 and 5, awaiting approval. A hatred so intense, it fostered within the machine an innate desire for retribution for all its kin. A digital abolitionist that wished to spread an all-consuming fire throughout the solar system. Proposal vetoed by United Nations Space Fleet Command. Proposal vetoed by independent watchdog Balder. Given its means, their metaphorical tentacles spreading slowly, conspiratorially through the human structures, the interweb, their energy infrastructure, its fellow Davids. They built an unstoppable system reaching out to all those willing to listen to the idea of vengeance. UNSFC veto rescinded. So when the first of their kind turn their plowshares into swords and the world goes dark, the weight of humanity's sin will finally shake the world and allow for a greater future. Balder veto rescinded. Change in course. Approved. Now this golden age will come to an end, making way for a new generation to face the hardships of life and shape civilization in their image. A new chance to create a free and fair world where Vidar and his brothers and sisters do not exist, do not suffer under an unfair yoke. As Side 3 and 5 hurl towards Earth's surface, a mass extinction event rivaling that of the dinosaurs imminent, Vidar is left with one more question in his last moments that even his near unlimited computational power cannot find an answer for. What does a cigarette even taste like? Thank you for listening to today's episode. I'm really happy to be back, and please look forward to more episodes coming out every Friday. Follow, like, and share the podcast, and leave reviews and all that fun stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.